Dear Principal, hey, it's Dr. Lisa Cordia Taylor. How are you today? I want to start off today by just saying thank you. Thank you to our administrators, our school administrators, district, state, um, all those types of administrators out there who have been working, crazily working since March, trying to figure out what school's going to be like and how to take care of all the things that we have no idea what we're facing, all the unknowns, all the freaked out people, and if it's going to be virtual or half and half or whatever. And so much of that is out of our hands. But I just want to say thank you. I know of some friends and colleagues of mine who are administrators at different levels, school leaders, and who have spent hours beyond their contract in the last few weeks trying to help people and get some things figured out, release plans that they know could change. Our district released their plan a day or two ago, but then the governor is supposed to make a decision around July 31st about the next phase in our state. So will it stay the same? I don't know. But thank you. Um, we as teachers and other staff members don't know what you've gone through this summer. We haven't been there. And we've gone through our own things, but we've done it at home or on vacation or all those things with our good dogs in our yards, our family members around us. We don't know the meetings and the stress and the telephone calls. My dogs are playing. The telephone calls and the emails of worry and trying to do the best you can without you knowing. So thank you for all your work. Well, so I can't imagine the stress you're feeling as school's about to start. And if you here's your team and you're about to take what you have worked so hard drafting and composing and talking and discussing and dealing with the debates and all these things that we don't really have a clue that you've been doing. And then you're needing to take that and give it over to your staff. And you know that you need this part to be given to the cafeteria workers, this part to be given to the custodians. Praise the custodians for what they're about to have to do. My husband's a school custodian. Wow, I just can't imagine. I at each part, and then there's your teachers. Now, I'm betting that you're also kind of glad that you're not in the classroom, that you're not a frontline soldier. Probably pretty glad that in some ways, you wouldn't say this to anybody, but that you're one of the generals on the horses in the background or at headquarters, not on the front lines of the war. And you feel for your teachers. You feel for them because you know that all day long, from the second they walk in the building until they leave, and even after then, they are bombarded. And they're going to be the moms and the dads to comfort and to help work through, have to face things when they're happening, while you often get them after the fact or having to deal with the repercussions. So I'm sure in some ways you're glad to be that. But then on the other hand, you're probably like, well, but my job is take care of them. How do I do that? I have this staff And I'm very blessed. I think people may disagree with me, but I work in a small school. So what is a small school defined as? Let's see. I was trying to think about that. Maybe 35 certified teachers. And then, of course, paraprofessionals, counselors, therapists, secretaries, custodians, cafeteria workers, etc. Okay, but about 35 actually certified teachers, including special education. So, um, pretty small school. Some of you guys have staffs of 100 to maybe 200 or more in bigger districts, bigger areas. And in my small school, we have one principal. We don't have even an assistant. And I know some of you have vice principals and other people to help you support your teachers. But you still have this responsibility. And we're going to be under this high stress situation. So you're not going to necessarily know if we're going to react how we always have. Maybe you have that easygoing, really, really flexible teacher and you think, okay, he or she will be okay through this, they'll get through this, but this isn't something we've never faced before. Are we really going to react in the same way we always have? How is the stress going to show? And it's going to show. I guarantee there's going to be teachers who you've never seen break down and cry before that's going to cry. Teachers who you've always thought was pretty level-headed get angry. Staff members who are pretty healthy have some mental stress so much so that they're sick more, or they need more breaks, or whatever. So we're walking into the unknown. And we don't know how we're going to react. And then we have the kids and the parents, too. We don't know how they're going to handle things. I thought my granddaughter would be really, really annoyed by having to wear a mask. She's going into first grade. And a week ago or so, she was able to go to a school camp for a week and had to wear a mask every day. And she did great. And she surprised me at how resilient she was and how she did that. And it was fine. And she was very conscientious of that. I'm proud of her for that. So I think we're not going to know how individual kiddos and people are going to be. So, principal, how do you take care of us? All these individual people with personalities, stresses, and things happen over the summer, as you know. As your faculty and staff have been home all summer and they've had to deal with stuff, there's been other things that have happened, What about your staff members who've had family members who've had COVID or maybe even lost someone, or more than someone? What about the fear? What about their own children? Their own brothers and sisters, their own spouse? All those things that we're concerned about. Maybe they themselves are very healthy, but they're worried that if they go to school and pick up the virus and they're asymptomatic, but they take it home to their spouse who is fragile with their health. It's crazy. What are we going to do? And in the next few weeks, some teachers are going to quit and decide to retire now or change jobs, or that they just can't handle this as these plans come forth. What if all the teachers who want to go virtual, there's not enough spaces for them? What if you don't have enough teachers to go virtual? All that stuff, right? Well, we can prepare the best we can and do what we need to do. So I want to take a moment and I want to express to you how vital it is for you to take care of your staff. And I want to give you in the next little while, today, in the next few videos, probably ways that you can do that. Things that I've seen. that have helped me or haven't helped me, and my colleagues, my friends, my coworkers. Things that I know, things that have been shared, things that are personal. So I want to ask you a question. I know we talked last time about the difference between formal and informal culture, and if you didn't read or didn't hear that video, maybe go back and find that. Check out Dr. Anthony Muhammad's book about transforming school culture. And as I shared that video, one of my friend colleagues from the past, who is a school administrator, said this. I think it's pretty close to a direct quote. Anyway, he said, school culture and climate eats academics for lunch. You can have the best academic situation with the most brilliant teachers and minds with the best teaching skills and great classroom management. But if your school culture and climate is struggling, the academics aren't going to be there, or even if they are, people are going to be miserable. Both parents, teachers, students, kids, everybody. And you're going to have people leave. And as we talked about in one of my previous videos, that quality teaching, quality teachers have to be in their situation for 5 years or more before they're truly effective. And we can just kind of erase that nobody is going to be in a known situation this year, so we're all first year teachers next year. Every single one. With varying personalities and experiences. But I want to ask you a couple questions, and maybe think to yourself if you can answer them. So, for example, think about, I don't know, pick a team. Pick one of your teams. Pick your 4th grade team. Pick your math team. Pick whatever, pick a team. Okay? So you can only focus on small people, not your whole staff. Okay? Now on that team, ask you, do you know if they are married or single? And you can't look up on their applications or their profile stuff. Do you know that? Or just off the top of your head. Can you say, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, this person is, okay? Why is that important for you to know that? Well, just like it's important for me to know if my students come from a single parent home, or if they're in foster care, or if they've moved around a lot or whatever, it helps me be able to be kind and compassionate, be able to say, okay, this may be their insecurity because of this. What's their situation? Next question. Are the members on your team who are parents and who are not? And if they're parents, do you know about how many children they have? Boys or girls? Are they at home? Are those kids at home or grown or mixture of both? Do they have any extras that they take care of? That is part of their responsibility? Extra people? Maybe aging family members, parents, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, neighbor kids? What's their sphere of influence? And how does that dynamic? And you might not, you probably, because of this informal, formal culture stuff, you may not know them well enough to say, well, this teacher has a child that's this age and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't know some of them, ask yourself why. I mean, when I think of my colleagues and my 35 teachers in my building, I think I know which ones are married and which ones are single. Even those that I hardly ever see or talk to, because they're not on my team. We don't interact with PLCs or whatever. I know who has children, and I think I have a pretty good idea of who has kids school age or young or before school, before kindergarten, who are parents, who are grandparents. Because I care to know that about people. I take the opportunity to ask those questions so that I know. Do I know which ones? So think about that, okay? But that's harder when you have that informal, formal culture. It's hard to be friends with your staff. You don't necessarily want to be. It's kind of like a teacher, can't really be friends with their students. But we want to be friendly. We don't need to be their buddy, but we want them to know we really, really love and care about them. So how do we do that? What do you know about them and their likes and dislikes? How do they cope with stress? Which ones drink coffee like crazy all day long? Which ones have a cup in the morning? Maybe you have a coffee machine in the office or in the faculty room, and which ones do you see? Which ones don't you see? Do you know why? Or they hate coffee? Does it taste yucky? I get really, really frustrated because I'm not a coffee drinker when I go to a meeting and the only beverage available is coffee for free. Coffee or maybe water, or because there's a water fountain, but there's usually a coffee machine, right? So I'm forking out money to feed my caffeine addiction that's cold with bubbles, while my colleague is feeding themselves for free. Okay. So what do you know? What do they do to cope? Okay. So then the next question, when you think about the team, go through each person. Do you think that team member, think of somebody specific, do you think they think that you have their back personally as a professional? Do you think that they think that you have their back personally? If you can't say yes to both those questions, then you're going to have a hard time taking care of your staff because there's not going to be trust. If they don't feel like they can trust you professionally or personally, this is going to be a rougher year than it's already going to be. Because I have to know that I'm safe emotionally, not just physically. And you've been working with the physical stuff all summer. But what about my emotional safety? What about that? Now, I've taught for 25 years, and I've had a lot of principals. So I just want to share a couple of good examples. Okay, so I brought a friend. My dragon. I have kept this dragon through several moves and a lot of downsizing, where I've gotten rid of a bunch of stuff that I don't need. You know, you get a certain age, you start giving stuff away, you take stuff more to the thrift store. But this guy I have kept. And I don't look at him or touch him or hold him very much, but he sits by my bed, and he's always there because he means a great deal to me. This dragon was given to me by a principal, my boss. And I'll tell you why. So, over Christmas break in 2013, 2 days before Christmas, I got sick. And I got really sick. And it was sudden. And Christmas Eve, I was in the hospital. And my life was in danger. I mean, like, really in danger. So much so that on Christmas Day, I was given a ride in an ambulance, 3.5 hours to a major medical center, because where I was, they couldn't take care of me. And I had to have surgery the day after, and they flew in several specialists from around the country, and maybe, I don't know if I think there may have been one international doctor, and that's why they had to postpone the surgeries to wait for them to get there. Well, it was over Christmas break, and I was in this hospital. My husband was with me, which was great. He could stay with me in the room with me. But I was away from my family at Christmas time. And my children were freaking out. My mom was freaking out. And it was very difficult. And My life was on the balance, literally on the balance. The surgery, it was very high probability that I wouldn't even make it through surgery. Well, I can't remember. I think it was after the surgery, that maybe the day after or within a couple of days, where I was still. I mean, they cut me open from my chest, but it was just I have this huge incision scar now on my belly. So my husband was outside my room, and I don't know why. I don't remember the details, but he was out for a little while, and he came back in with my dragon. And my principal had gone to the city. A lot of people did, travel when they could to enjoy things that we didn't have in our small town. But while he was there in the city, he took the time to come to the hospital. And of course, I've been in contact with him and telling him, I don't know, this is what's happening. Because I knew at the minimum I would be out for a while after Christmas break, recovering from a major surgery for a few weeks, that I couldn't work. But he came to the hospital and he told my husband that he didn't want to bother me. He didn't want to come in. And because I was, as I said, fairly new out of surgery. I don't know if it was that day or the day after. But he said, please give this to her. Couple things. This was our school colors, blue and gold. And he said, tell her she's fierce, but gentle at the same time. And tell her that this will be her buddy and watch over her and help her. She can squeeze him, whatever. And he said, just tell her that we're thinking of her. And he left. I was thought of. And the gift was very, very personal. School colors, reminding him of me because I'm a little bit crazy. I kept this dragon. I held on to him from then on until the entire time I was in the hospital. The next 10 days or so. And then when I went home, he was by me, and I held him. And as I had pain, I would grab him and hold on to him till the moment passed. And I was fierce. I had to be. Now, you might think that this principal and I had a really good relationship. We really didn't. I had some real issues and things about how he was an administrator, but that moment, I think he was my administrator for another year and a half. After that, I gave him a break. And I knew that he cared about me as a human being, not just as a teacher. And that because of that, I was a lot happier as his employee than I was before this moment. I was okay with him. It made all the difference in the world that he took the time to care about me as a human being. He didn't have to. And I'd had surgery and things before, not quite this life-threatening as a school teacher, but I had never had an administrator who took the time to come while I was ill and check on me. And this principal continued. He had been checked on me through texts and through things during the whole ordeal and during my recovery. And he kept saying, don't come back if you're not ready. Do you need a substitute for longer? What do you need? And because of that, I actually came back to work a couple of weeks early because I knew that if I couldn't handle what I was trying to do, that he'd let me go home and it'd be okay. And so I think my recovery was better because I didn't feel the stress of going back to work because I could take care of myself. Thank you. Thank you, my principal, for being there. The second example was many, many years before that. I was maybe a second year teacher, probably. Maybe a third, I don't know. First, not very long, okay? I had 3 little kids at home. And so I was trying to be a mom and teacher and all that stuff. It was professional development week, the week before school starts. And my kids were home. My oldest, maybe it wasn't anyway, my kids were home by themselves during that professional development week. I was going home at lunch to check on them. I only lived less than a mile away. I was able to check on him. It was before cell phones, so there wasn't that. But anyway, so the school secretary found me and said I had a phone call from my daughter and she was crying. And so, of course, take the phone call. And she said that our cat had just got hit by a car and had died and was in the street. And she was devastated and didn't know what to do with the body and stuff. And she was really, 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 really upset. And she didn't want to pick up the cat, but she didn't want to leave it there either. So we were in the middle of our trainings, required trainings, probably bloodborne pathogens and sexual harassment and all that stuff that you have to do. And so I went up to my principal and I'm like, this is what's going on. And I know, and I said, what are you doing here? Go home. Take care of your daughter. If my cat got hit by a car, my daughter would be a mess. Take care of your daughter. Go home. And I'm like, just go home. Now. So I did, and I took care of the cat, got it out of the road, and we buried the cat and comforted my daughter and, held her and did what I needed to do. And I don't remember if my boys cared. Maybe. But she was traumatized. So, anyway, I came back as quickly as I could. And I mean quickly. I bet I was gone half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. I tried as quickly to do what I had to do to be the mama, to understand, to help her understand that mama had to go back to work. And I came back, and my principal looked at me and said, why are you here? And I said, well, we got it taken care of. And he said, is everything okay at home? Did you take care of the cat? Did you take care of your daughter? Does she need you? Go get her and have her come to school if she needs to be with you today. And I'm like, no, I think we're okay. And then he did this. Pointed his finger at me. And he said, if I ever find out that you put work before your family again, you're going to be in trouble with me. And they turned around and walked away. And I was like, wow. He was mad at me because I came back to work as quickly as I could. Because he didn't think that I had taken care of my family like maybe I should have. And I got the message loud and clear that if I needed to be a mama, that was my first job. If I needed to be a wife, that was my second job. And then maybe after that we could talk about work. But he knew that if I didn't take care of my family and take care of that part of me, that I would not be a good teacher. And so my experience with that principal, I believe, is tied with my best principals that I've had. because I always knew, always, that he cared about me as a person. Here's another example from that same principal. We had evil lunch duty, and fortunately, that isn't something a lot of teachers have to do. Well, at least in my experience, I don't have that anymore. But in those days, I did. We had lunch duty, and as an English teacher, he knew, of course, I read stuff, and so as he was always there on lunch duty, so that was impressive. Number one, that he made it a priority to help us on lunch duty, to be there and visible, and not just hold up in his office where he could have, but he's always there. And then when he was at lunch duty, he, we'd be walking around, and we were usually guarding the hall, and he would come up to me and he would tell me about the books he was reading, or have I read this or read that or whatever. And if I hadn't read the books, he would tell me about them. If I had read them, we would have conversations about them, 5 minutes tops. But he would ask me very specific, poignant things to understand my way of thinking about the book. We sometimes agreed about books and sometimes we didn't. And because of him, I read Stephen King's The Stand because of his suggestions, because he was blown away by the book. And he wanted me to read it because he wanted to talk to me about it. So I did. It freaked me out. But it was very good. Amazing, amazing book. And I appreciated that. And I watched, and he would do similar things with the teachers. So with the teacher that liked fishing, he would talk fishing. With the teacher that went four-wheeling, he talked four-wheeling. If you didn't have something in common with that teacher, he tried to find something. It was awesome. And I really always felt with that principal that he had my back. Third example from this principal, and then I will close. So this was in the era of those Apple bubble computers. Do you remember those? They were blue teal bubble things. Okay? And they had a CD drive at the bottom. And we got new ones. And it was just right when teachers started getting personal computers on their desks. Okay? Yeah, 25 years ago. And I had this computer that hated me. And I fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it. Okay, it had this issue and this issue and this issue and this issue. We had the art teacher in our building had some technology experience, and he was kind of our go-to tech guy before we had building tech people. And he would even say to me, he thought I was one of those people. He kept asking me if I wore a watch, and I did. I don't have mine on today, and he said, I'm surprised because I bet you're one of those people that because of your magnetism, what freaks the watch out. I'm guessing that you're freaking out the computer. Because it was just, he said, I don't understand why this keeps happening to you, and it's nothing you're doing wrong technologically wise, because I was actually pretty adept at the technology. Anyway, so this kept going on while I had this computer. So one year I dealt with it when it crashed 2 days before grades were due. It's when I learned you keep a record, a hard copy record, as well as in the computer with your grades, all this stuff, and just time after time. So anyway, I after a year and a half of this mess, I was chatting in the faculty room with another colleague of mine. We had started the same year, so we were equally as experienced as the other, but he was a he. And anyway, I was saying I had put in technology requests from the district technology people over and over and over again. And he looked at me and he's like, whenever I send a tech request, they usually they're that day or the next day, and I'm up and going. I'm like, what? What? What do you mean? They just come and fix it? I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and I didn't get emails. I didn't get anything. And then a couple of times I email and saying, just checking on the status of, this issue, and can you help me? And they're like, yeah, we got this. We'll get to you. Da, 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 da. And I thought maybe this other teacher had major things happen. I was just having lots of little glitches. And he was like, no, I had the same issue with the printer or whatever it was, and they just came over and fixed it. I'm like, I haven't been able to print anything from my computer for weeks and weeks. What? So, my principal came in, and this isn't one thing he did, and he asked how we're doing. Is there anything I can do to help you? And he meant it. And I knew that if he asked, that he would do his best, and he had a notebook, and he wrote it down. And so I said, well, actually, this was after I heard that my colleagues' tech requests had been dealt with well, and mine weren't. And I just explained what I knew, and he was like, what? And so he said, you come with me. But after school planning period, I don't remember what it was. So this principal's known, he never sat still. So we ran across the school to this other teacher, and he asked about his computer and about the tech stuff and the issues. And he explained exactly what he said to me. Oh! And he says, you're telling me? And he said, yeah. And I said, this is what you're doing? And he got it. And so anyway, he's like, well, I'm going to check some stuff out. So he went door to door and interrupted his teachers' classes and asked them, when you submit a tech request, are you helped? When you submit a tech request, are you helped? And he found out that all the men were being helped immediately, and the women not so much. Well, that made him mad. So, how are you coming to me? Well, the interesting thing is we had a small district office, literally in portables, in our parking lot. Okay? So the tech office was literally across the parking lot. And my classroom was right by the door across the parking lot. So you come with me. And so he storms across there. He throws open the tech door to this portable, walks in, finds the head of the technology department. He was there. And he looked at him and he said, this is what I found out about you guys today. You take care of guys, you don't take care of girls, and this is one of my very best teachers, and you darn well better get her computer fixed right now. In fact, she's had so many problems over the last year and a half, and she hasn't been taken care of. I expect by the end of this week, she has a brand new computer on her desk. I don't even want her to have this computer anymore. You take care of her, and you take care of her right now. And he yelled, and it was this, I was like, hey, hello. Okay. I just stood there and smiled, and he yelled. And maybe that wasn't very professional, and maybe he should have done it that way. But when I left, I just smiled and followed him out. When he stormed out, I was just like, my principal cares about me professionally. If he will stand up for me, he has my back. I had a new computer on my desk. I believe that day, a brand new blue bubble teal computer. I wasn't on the schedule to get a brand new computer, but I had one. And I didn't have any more glitches. I didn't have any more problems. I just may have gotten the lemon out of the hundreds that the district had bought that year. So, dear principal, do your teachers feel like you have their back, both professionally and personally? If you don't know, what can you do to find out? You can't just ask your tried and true people you always go to. Okay? How are you going to find out the culture and climate of people's perceptions about you. So that when we go into school this year and everybody's stressed out and freaking out and we're all having breakdowns and hyperventilating and are scared. Some are scared for their physical safety, some are scared for their emotional safety, some are afraid that they want to be home and doing virtual but they can't quit or whatever. What are you going to do? And how are you going to help them know that you care about them as a person? It makes a difference. People who are appreciated will do more than what's expected of them without pay, without complaining. That's a quote by I don't know who goes around. But people who know that they are appreciated and valued for who they are as a human being, emotionally, physically, professionally, will do more than what's expected. Sincerely, your teachers.